Hey neighbors, Kevin here with eTrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Stealth Hitches Trailer Hitch receiver here on our 2025 BMW X5. Now you've gone and you spent all of this money on a nice fancy BMW. The last thing that you want on there is a rusty old ball mount or receiver tube, making that look all grody at the back here. So that's where Stealth Hitch came up with their idea of a removable receiver tube, or with the towing kit, which is also optional. What this does is it just pops right into place into the receiver block, which is nicely hidden up behind your fascia, so that way when you aren't towing, it looks like you just have a factory vehicle. But when it is time to take out the toys, you can easily just unlock it and slide your receiver tube or your towing ball mount into place. So taking a closer look at our receiver block, we have on the passenger side a latch that you'll twist up towards the front of the vehicle, and that will lock in place to where when you have your receiver tube, you can just slide it right up in there. You can hear it lock right in. On the driver's side, we have a lock core, which also has a little cap that you'll place over it to help protect it. That way, if you do get some water that seeps through your fascia, it's not going to mess that lock up and corrode it to where you can't get the key in. Alongside our receiver tube, we also have two little tow hooks, and that's for our safety chains. And that is only going to be used if you have the optional ball mount. If you have this receiver tube, you can only use this to haul a bike rack or a cargo carrier or any other hitch mounted accessory that's not a trailer. It even says so right on the label, not for towing. So you'll definitely want to make sure that if you do plan on towing a trailer, you pick up the wiring and ball mount kit, which I have right here. Our wiring is hidden right over here to the side. It's going to have a 7-way connector that we'll install, and then it also comes with an optional adapter to go from 7-pole down to 4-pole. That way, if you're towing a smaller trailer that only has lights and no brakes, you're not having to have a 7-way on it. Now this is going to slot right into place just like the receiver tube will. Push it up in there, it'll lock into place, and then you'll be able to tow. Now when it comes with the safety chains, you will only be able to use the S-hook style. The larger clevis style is not going to work right here. There's just not really enough room for it to fit through, whereas with the S-hook, you can still get it up in there. You might want to invest in some quick links though. You can have those just thread right on here, and then they'll give you a little bit of an extension so you can easily get your safety chains in place. With the receiver tube back in place, I can go over one other important feature. This is going to require a 5/8 pin and clip, which will not be included with your kit, but typically that is included with whatever accessory that you're hauling around. If you don't have that with the accessory, or maybe you just lost it, you can pick another one up from here at eTrailer and be ready to go. All right, now to give you guys some measurements. When we measure from the ground up to the top inside edge of our receiver tube, we're getting 23 inches. Now we're going to subtract 8 inches to make up for our lift, so that puts you right at 15 inches of clearance from the ground. That's really good. Typically we want to see about 12 inches. The other important clearance issue is with our hitch pin hole. Now typically on most trailer hitches it's kind of sitting back behind the fascia. On this one's actually in front of the fascia, so you should not run into any kind of clearance issues when you fold up your bike rack or your cargo carrier. Now there might be an issue once you have that lift gate come down and the actually open up, so you might want to double check that before you have your bike rack or whatever folded up and then have that open and accidentally hit it. Now when it comes to the install for our trailer hitch along with the wiring kit and ball mount combo, it is going to be a very tough install. This is one that I would not recommend doing at home. If you are a mechanic, you have all the tools, all the special ins and out knowledge that it comes with working with fancier cars, then yes, go right ahead, get it yourself, go and tackle it. But if you're not, if you're feeling like this might be a little bit too complicated, I highly recommend checking out our dealer locator, which is going to allow you to look up shops within your zip code that'll help get your trailer hitch installed. Now, if you are that DIYer and you are going to do this yourself, stick around. We're about to start the install. Starting out, we will open up our rear hatch here, and we're going to pull out 2 panels. We've got one on the left, one on the right. This one on the left, if you just press down that button, it'll unlatch it and you can pull it right on out. We'll set that to the side, and then over on our passenger side, this one doesn't have a latch, but is very simple to pop out. You just stick a little plastic trim panel tool. You can pry it out. There's going to be two little clips that pop right in right there that will pop out of the way. And then we are going to move to the middle section here. I've already lowered my seats down. And in the back, there's going to be two clips that we're going to pop out. So if we look right here, we'll pop that up. And there's going to be a Torx bolt on both of these. And you're going to need a T30 Torx bit. And once we have those both loose, that'll allow us to lift up our tray here in the back. From the front, I'll unlatch it. We'll let that drop back down just a bit because we're going to pop out that gas strut right there. And to do so, you just need a tiny little screwdriver, and you can pry up on the little tab to pop this out. Let me get a little bit closer. There we go. And we can pull the whole panel out now. Now we're going to have 7 push pin fasteners. There's one here, here. We've got 3 on the front here, 1 more, and 2 more on the sides. And for those, you can just use a tiny little screwdriver. Get those started to prop up. Sometimes they're loose enough you can just pull it out by hand. Sometimes you'll also need a trim panel removal tool. We're lucking out in this case, they are pretty loose. And we'll pop each one of these out so that we can pull this out and get access to our battery. With all those push pins removed, we can lift up our tray and pop it right out, throw it to the side. Next, we're going to have 4 screws, one here, 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 and here, and those are all going to require a T20 Torx bit. And we'll remove each one of those. And we should be able to lift our threshold up out of here. Going to fight us on the lip just where this gasket is going around the rear hatch. If we can slide it out. Next, on our passenger side, we're going to have a little plastic cover we're going to pop out, and I'm just using a little 90-degree pry tool. We'll get that in and pull it out and reveal another screw that we're going to need to remove. Next, using an 8mm socket, we'll remove that screw. Next, on the front of our passenger side panel, we're going to have a little plastic circle we're going to pop out and reveal another screw. For this screw, we'll be using a 10mm socket. Next, we will pull out this trim piece. You're going to want to just pull straight towards the front of the vehicle and then lift up. As you lift up, you can start to turn it out because there's a long plastic piece that's going to be right at the bottom, right here, that kind of curves into a little slot right here. And then we can just lay that down. Now behind that trim piece is another plastic rivet that's going to be holding down our whole side panel here. So we'll pop that out. Next, we'll have 2 more rivets we're going to pop out of the side. So we got one right here and then another right back there. Next, we can just pull inwards toward the center of the vehicle to dislodge the side panel. Now there's still another piece kind of holding us in a little bit, so be careful over here. You could easily break a plastic clip. I'm going to have to slowly pop this out. Now I'm going to grab my trim panel tool and try and slowly pop that out of its clip. So I didn't end up having to remove the cover that goes over this. At this point, you're just getting pinched by this clip here for the door. But once we get it out enough, I'm loose in the front to where I can pull it away. We do have a couple clips we're going to take out though. So we've got this wire harness right here will pop out. And that one cannot be dislodged. That's for a light. So we aren't going to be able to fully remove this, but we'll be able to at least get it out of our way. All right, taking a closer look, we were able to get that out. It did have a clip. Just from where I was standing before, I could not see it. So we can pull this whole trim panel out. Using a 12mm socket, we're now going to release the nut that's holding on our taillight. And that is right above our fuse box, way in the back there. For the last little bit, I'm going to do it by hand so we don't end up losing that nut in the wheel or in the wall here. So on the driver's side, same thing. It's going to be in the same exact location. They even have a little strip of the soundproofing cut. So if you can kind of see in there, it's right behind this little tab. So I'll pull that down. That way we can access our tail light here. There we go. Now we're removing the panel that covers our tail light assemblies. And this you're just going to pull straight back. Looks like there's only two little clips holding on to the tabs right here and here. We'll just do the same thing on both sides. On both sets of taillights, we're going to have two T30 Torx bits that we're going to need. Take out those screws, and then also an 8mm socket just for this little screw at the bottom. Now we'll just pull out to the outside edge of our vehicle, and then we're going to have a harness to disconnect. We'll pull up on our red tab. I might need to get a little screwdriver to get in there. Just can't quite get it with my fingernail. Once we have our red tab pulled up, you can then press in on that little black piece right there and pop out your harness. Next, we're going to be taking the wheel well trim out, and to do that, we are going to want to put some painter's tape along this edge because we're going to be prying in here to pop this out because there's clips that are holding this in place. And so that we can protect our paint, using a little bit of painter's tape is going to have us have something to press against without actually scratching up the paint. So I'm going to try to get that real deep into that little crevice there. And I'm just going to tape my way up along the curve. Now that I have this all taped up, our goal is to get this bottom tab out first, and then there's going to be 3 tabs as we work our way up. So we're going to try and get a little bit of space here. If you want, if you can get your fingers in behind the wheel well liner to also pull up on that as well, that's going to be super helpful. But we'll try and pry that out. Go. Then once we get that out, it's pretty simple, just keep prying along here. There we go. And with that loose, we've now revealed one of our screws, and we'll use an 8mm socket to remove it. And we'll set that aside. Now we're going to take out our reflectors. These are super easy to damage because it typically gets kind of hung up and pinched on that outer edge, and then you snap it. So we're going to be really careful using our 90-degree and just kind of pop that forward and pop it right out of place. So this is going to be another 8mm socket. Pop that off, and then we're going to do the same thing over on our driver's side. All right, there's going to be 26 screws in total that we're going to be removing from the rear side of our fascia, all the way from our quarter panels here, all throughout the middle here, and those are all going to require a 10mm socket. So we'll begin just by popping each one out. As you get through this, you'll start to have some of these panels come down. The side panels easily just pop right out of place. You can set those aside. Our main panel right here is going to come out, and then we're going to have 2 little 8 mils, one on either side here, that we're going to pop out as well as part of those 26 screws. Set all of our trim aside. Starting from our wheel well, we're going to start pulling out and work our way up. Once we get up to here, there's these little black plastic clips. And if you take your trim panel tool, you can kind of sneak it in there, push down on that. And then pop it right out. We'll just keep working our way along. Then once we get past that, we can kind of lift up enough to just get it over that black plastic and start pulling it backwards toward the back of the vehicle. Because there's one more clip it's hanging up on right here up top, and that's where we had a bolt going through originally. There we go. That was that guy right there. And then there's 2 more clips. As we work our way down towards the center of the vehicle, you'll see we have tabs here, here, there. And that same thing, you can kind of press up against it so you can get it off the black part, which is hidden real close there. So we did angle our lift gate just a bit so that we can get access to that. You're gonna need to keep some pressure on it. Out and just keep working your way across. Now with all of our clips disengaged, we can slowly pull out on our fascia. I'm going to be careful because there can be connectors hidden behind here. I have some on my side, so we'll pop that off, just pulling on the 2 tabs on either side, and then we can set this to the side. I'm just going to flip it up and next, we'll lower our exhaust on both sides. You'll see this little setup with a isolator here, this little rubber guy. Right above that, you're going to have a nut that you'll remove. Now, typically, I'd say you also need to put some straps down to support your exhaust here, but there is already a support brace that's made out of metal in all the framework, so we don't have to in this case. But we can pop that right out of the way because we are going to be removing this cross beam right here and replacing that with our trailer hitch. We're also going to remove this little plastic Christmas tree rivet out of here. Now, you can probably get it out by hand. If not, use a trim panel tool, removal tool. Just pop that out, and that's our wire harness leading out to our liftgate sensor. So to gain access to the top 2 bolts on either side of our cross beam, we are going to have to remove this plastic. To do so, there's just little push pins. So you will have to have this angled. About a 45-degree angle is probably going to give you enough space. Just push those out. With those out, we can remove the panel itself. Now they do have little push pins. I can see, or not push pins, but little clips built into them. I'm gonna have to pry on just to get it out of the other piece it's snapped into. Now on the front of these, if you push towards the front of the vehicle, you can get that little tab. On this side, you'll probably need your removal tool just to kind of pop that. And so on the front, you can kind of push on it and get it off of that little lip there. Same thing on this side, but you might have to kind of reach your hand in behind the cross beam to get to it. And there's a second clip behind it as well to kind of pry against. There we go. So here's that second clip. It was catching on right in that second hole there. Now we can disconnect our liftgate sensor mounting panel. This is going to have 5 plastic rivets. And we can disconnect that as well for right now, just so it's out of our way. Using an 18mm socket, we will now remove the flange nuts that hold our cross beam on. With all 8 removed, we can then remove our cross beam. Being real careful that we don't accidentally grab our wire harness. Now we can install our hitch. Let's slip it past that wiring first. Make sure we're good on that side. And we're kind of catching on the paint here. They oversprayed just a bit. So I'm going to use a rubber mallet, just kind of persuade it into place. Now, since the old exhaust or crossbeam had a spot for our exhaust hanger to mount to, we had to add on our own that came with our kit. And you want to make sure that you have that tab facing out so that the exhaust hanger can actually match up with it. So we'll just get those in place, and then we're going to thread on our factory flange nuts again, and we can tighten those down and torque them as well. And as you're doing this, before you fully tighten that down, this is slotted so you can move it back and forth and really get that fit just perfect, so that way you can easily mount up that exhaust hanger. Now before I get these set, I want to make sure that I have this mounted up with our exhaust hanger. We're going to have a bolt, a flat washer, and a flange nut in our kit along with those brackets. And on this, we're going to have the tab stick through that first hole. The back hole is going to be where we stick our bolt. And get it to line up. There we go. Once we pull that through, we can then use our flange nut. We'll just get that started. And once we tighten that down, this should sit a little bit more level, and then we can fully tighten up our bracket on here. To tighten this up, I'm going to be using 13mm sockets on both ends for both the flange nut and the bolt. And as we tighten that up, you can see it lifts right back up into place. And now we can fully tighten those down. With those all tightened down, you can now torque it to the specifications listed in your instruction manual. You don't want to go too tight with this. You could easily break off a stud if you do. Now we can reinstall those trim panels that we popped out to get access to our bolts. These will just pop right in and go in place with those 2 plastic rivets. Now for our next part, we would be installing the receiver block here. This is going to be the differentiating point for most of you out there. If you're getting the towing kit along with it, there's going to be a couple extra things we're going to add on right here. If not, you would just be slipping that right into place, putting your bolts through, and continuing on with the installation. Now for us, since we are also adding on the towing kit, we have these parts right here. These are going to be our safety chain loops. So these would mesh up with it right here. You want to make sure that you're putting the driver's side, or the handle on the passenger side and the lock over on the driver's side. We'll slip in one of our bolts, and that's going to help hold up our receiver tube. And we can slip in the other one. And then we're also going to have this mounting bracket for our 7-way. So we'll slip that into place too. And this is going to have the tab facing so that that extra portion is facing towards the rear of the vehicle. So when we slide that on, it should be kind of forced up to the front there so that it's kind of hidden more back behind our fascia. Once we have that in place, we'll then put on our lock nuts and tighten them down. Now we're going to torque it down to the specifications listed in the instructions manual. don't really make it easy for you to get that back bolt. But you want to make sure that you are keeping pressure on it as you tighten it up. There we go. All right, now we can reattach our kick sensor, and for that we'll just be reusing 3 of the push pins that they had on there originally. So that'll be those 3 center ones, just popping it right into our plate that we have on our hitch. And then reconnecting our plug right here on the end, right in that center. And with that installed, we should be good to start putting on the rest of our fascia and reinstalling all of the trim panels we removed. Now on your final piece of trim here, that's right where the hitch sits, we're gonna have to trim out a little bit of it. So there's already a cut from the factory. We're just adding on one little portion to kind of even it out. So we are gonna go around that curve, straight across, and then just down, just kind of the same way that it was on the other side. So I'm just gonna use my oscillating tool. Then you can just come by with a razor blade and scrape off any little burrs that you still have. Now with everything back in place, that will do it for the install side of this. The only thing you have left to do is just make sure that it's unlocked with the key over on the driver's side, and then you can just pop your accessory right into place. But with that said, that will do it for the installation of the Stealth Hitch Trailer Hitch Receiver here on our 2025 BMW X5. My name's Kevin. Please feel free to reach out to us via our Ask the Experts link, a comment on this video, or a phone call to our customer service department. We'd be happy to help you out on your journey.